Hi everyone! So I've been mentioning to you guys in videos lately that over the course of this past year and more towards the end of the past year, I've really been getting more and more into Syngoniums. And so I figured it was high time that I did my favorites Syngonium video for you guys. And normally when I do my favorites videos, I try to do my top 10 favorite in a specific genus of plant. However, sometimes it's just really hard to pick just 10. And so today we're actually going to be taking a look at my top 15 favorite Syngoniums. Now, I do not even remotely own all of these. I do own in total five Syngoniums. One of them I'm actually not going to bring out today because honestly, as much as I love it, it's just not in my top 15. It was the first Syngonium I ever got though. It is a bit more of a common variety. Absolutely adore it, but I just was like, the rest of these ones that I want to show you are just above everything else. So with no particular order in mind here, we're just gonna head into them. I do have my list and I swear I'm gonna try not to accidentally skip something today like I did in my recent wish list video. So let's go ahead and start with one of the ones that I actually own. This is, I think this might be the most recent Syngonium that I acquired. It was either this or another one we're gonna look at here in a bit. But this is probably one of my all-time favorites in terms of how it looks. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is obviously a little baby one. So I will flash up here in a second a picture of a more mature one for you. But this is Syngonium tricolor red spot or red spot tricolor. I've heard it said both ways, but I absolutely love this plant primarily because it is a combination of green and whitish variegation along with a pinkish reddish variegation. And this leaf right here is going to be the best example for you of that, assuming my camera wants to work with me today. What the heck, camera? There we go. I mean, come on. Beautiful, beautiful arrowhead shape to the leaves, which is what we expect of Syngonium. And by the way, you guys, this is scientifically a Syngonium podophyllum. Most of the Syngoniums I'm going to show you today are podophyllums. I will try to remember to point out the instances where they aren't, but if I don't say podophyllum, it's probably a podophyllum. But I'm gonna scooch this way real quick so I can flash a more mature picture of what one of these looks like up on screen for you. Okay, so here is, I believe what I'm showing you is possibly a sea of these. Either that or a sea of these and or just a single mature plant, but you can get a better idea of what it looks like when the leaves are slightly bigger and you've got a little bit more of that reddish pink going on the plant. Now, I will let you guys know, this is not at all a very fast growing Syngonium compared to others. So for example, my white butterfly that I was mentioning, which you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw a picture up here for you since I've already brought it up twice so you can see what it looks like. It is a bit more of a ordinary, common type Syngonium. Leaves typically come in a greenish color, and then as they mature, they get more of a very light border lining towards white color to the leaves, hence why it's called a Syngonium white butterfly. Now, this thing grows like a weed. It grows so fast, it's crazy. It will bush out pretty easily, so it will start to vine just like most Syngonium will, but if I cut it back, it tends to start to get more bushy, so it's pretty easy to keep it trimmed in a bushy look. Some of the Syngoniums we're going to be looking at today though, you guys, not as easy, so I'll try to point those out as we go along. But this one right here, this is by far the slowest growing Syngonium I have ever had. I think I've lost 2 leaves off of this since I got it. I think I've gotten maybe 1 new leaf. And I feel like we're about to lose this one, which is one of the oldest ones. I swear this camera today is not want to cooperate with me. I feel like we're going to lose this one relatively soon. So very slow growing, and it lives in the same place as one, well, pretty much in the same place as one of the other ones that I'm going to show you that's been growing like mad for me. So just naturally a slower growing Syngonium. It will stay a bit more dense and compact at first, but it can start to get very viney and traily. Once again though, with most Syngoniums, it's pretty easy to keep them a bit bushier just by repeatedly trimming back. Just don't trim back too much at a time, and it'll force them to start to branch out more further down. Now, if I had known when I first acquired this that these were so slow to grow, I probably would have bought more than one and potted them up together because I would like this to get at least a little bit more full. I would like it to look a little bit more like the one we're going to look at next, which is also just a baby, but as you can see, definitely looking more full than this one. This is just 1 vine though, this is 3, so you know, I guess that's the only reason that this looks more bushy, hence why I wish I had bought a few more of these. I am going to be doing vending at a plant swap tomorrow though, you guys, and the lady that I originally bought this one from is going to be there. So who knows, maybe I will, if she has some, acquire a few more and make this look a little bit more full. But absolutely adore the Syngonium. It also kind of tends to have like a splashy look to the variegation on the leaves. A lot of people kind of describe this as like a combination between like a Syngonium albow, because it has that kind of whitish variegation on it, only it doesn't get really white. It's more of like a mint color in my opinion. And then it's kind of also a cross between some of the pink Syngoniums, like the pink splash Syngoniums, with that pinkish reddish color. However, I really appreciate that the color on this is not really pink. I appreciate that it's more of a reddish tone. There is also a Syngonium, I think it's called a salmon, which has the same kind of coloring on it, but it doesn't have that additional other variegation with it. But just a beautiful, beautiful plant. I can't wait until you get bigger. I wish it was going to happen quicker. Okay, let me set that one aside. And so we'll talk about the Syngonium Winlandii next. This is not a podophyllum, so it is just straight up scientifically recognized name is Syngonium Winlandii. Beautiful, beautiful velvet leafed Syngonium. I'm starting to think there is a setting set wrong on my camera, you guys, but I am looking at it right now, and I don't think it's set wrong. So apologies for the lack of focusing, but you can see how beautiful these velvety green leaves are, and they get this silver whitish stripe down the middle. Now, also not the crazy fastest growing Syngonium in the world, to be honest with you. It does probably, as you can tell here, have a bit more of a vining pattern look to it than staying more dense and bushy. It definitely, I think, does better in terms of like people I've seen who have mature ones of these, which if I can find a good looking one, I'll flash it up here for you. I definitely think this one looks better when it's grown a bit more as a climber than attempting to let it trail. Now, unfortunately, from what I have heard, these beautiful stripes down the middle of the leaves on this plant, they do not last. So as this plant matures, the leaves will eventually just go to being all velvety green like that. But I don't know that I'm going to mind that, you guys, because I love velvety leaf plants, as you know. And so I think I will still appreciate it even as it matures and that happens, but definitely is a nice little feature to it when it's at this size. Now, also has a more elongated shape to the leaf, still that arrowhead shaped. Most of the Syngoniums that we're going to look at today are arrowhead shaped. Most Syngoniums in general are arrowhead shaped, hence why they're also sometimes referred to as arrowhead vines. But we do have some we're going to look at today, or at least one that is not arrowhead shaped like that. Now, there is another plant that looks very similar to this called a Syngonium. All right, everybody says it Rayi or Rayi. However, I have noticed that when I was researching it, everything came up with everybody spelling it as Rayi. I checked scientifically, that is not even remotely correct. Scientifically, it is Rayi. So I don't know when or how or why everybody started adding another I to the end, but very similar look to this, as you can see. They are individually recognized species. They look so similar though, like I don't even know. I think that one is a little bit darker leaf perhaps, but still velvety, still has that stripe down the middle. And I'm guessing it probably still will lose that stripe as it matures as well. But this is the second to last new Syngonium I got, or possibly the last one between the last two. These first two that we've looked at, they are my two newest ones. Very happy to have added this one to my collection and hoping that things go well. I do think we will give it a pull at some point, but once again, not exactly the fastest grower, a little bit faster than that red spot tricolor, so we have some time before we're going to have to address that. Okay, let's look at one I don't own next. And I think we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at the Panda Galaxy. Now, I mentioned in my recent wishlist video that I had thought about putting this one in the top 10 of my wishlist. I didn't. It is still on my wishlist though, and it is an absolutely beautiful plant. Now, I think that this has very similar to the red spot tricolor that we were looking at, very similar variegation in terms of that it's kind of splotchy and speckly. There is a Syngonium just Panda, which I believe is different than the Panda Galaxy. I think the Panda is just more of that blotched style like variegation. versus the speckled style. And I think the Panda Galaxy has the combination of the two. So this dark green leaf with these blotches of that lighter green coloring and speckling, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now, once again, more of a, what I would call a traditional shape to a Syngonium leaf. It's not elongated, it's not super compact, more heart-shaped looking, just kind of your standard shape to that leaf. And my understanding is that this one is a little bit of a quicker grower than the two that we've looked at so far. However, still not going to be one of the fastest growing ones on the list. It does tend to grow kind of more in that similar style to the Syngonium white butterfly that I was talking about that I own, where it will eventually start to trail, but it's also pretty easy to keep trimming it back and getting it to stay in more of a bush-like appearance. But it is a beautiful Syngonium. I have seen these recently around here being sold by local vendors. And so who knows, I might acquire one at some point, because I believe I mentioned to you guys in my wish list video that right now the most of the real estate window space I have available in my house is in north facing windows, and my Syngoniums have done fabulously in north facing windows. But let's see what's next up on the list. Okay, so next up on the list we have a Syngonium Urethophyllum, I believe is how it's pronounced, and this is the Ilano Carti Road. I may have just butchered all of that, you guys, but I did my best. I'll flash it up on screen for you so you know what I was trying to say. This plant is definitely a bit more of a unique looking Syngonium. So once again, we still have that arrowhead shaped leaf, but it's almost sharper looking. Like, it's not as round looking to me as on a lot of the Syngoniums that we're going to be looking at today. And what is really striking is the fact that these are these super dark, glossy leaves, and they have this beautiful red backside to them. I have seen these mostly owned by people who let them hang in trailing baskets, and they look absolutely beautiful. So most of my Syngoniums, like I have said, I like to keep in more of a compact, bushy type format, with the exception of the fact that I will probably give this one a pull at some point. However, if I were to acquire this one at some point, I would definitely want to have this one as a hanging one. I just think it looks beautiful every time I see anyone who has one and has it hanging. Definitely a different look to a lot of the Syngoniums that we're going to be seeing today. I do know that I can acquire this fairly easily. Well, I say that. I haven't checked Steve Leaves' website in a while, but they used to have these all the time, and they are local. So I can easily just order one and go pick it up if I decide I want to have one someday. Right now, though, hanging places in my house, I do not have a lot to do, or a lot of space to put things. A lot to do. I don't even know what that means. A lot of space to put hanging plants like this. But if I get around to doing that planting wall in my bathroom that I want to do, this is something that I could consider for that. Okay, let's look at another one that I own, but I just realized I am missing one of the ones that I own. Apparently I forgot to bring it out, so let me go grab it real quick. Okay, and I say I own this, but I mean, technically I pulled it out of my inventory for my rare plant pop-up shops to use as part of my LECA experimentation that I've been doing for you guys, but I'm kind of falling back in love with this plant. I'll explain in a second. I might end up keeping it. I don't know, I'm crazy, you guys, you know. This is the beautiful Syngonium albow. So once again, this is a Syngonium podophyllum albow. So we've got that beautiful white variegation with that dark green leaf. And this right here is two vines. I think it's only two. Yep, two different plants basically in this jar of LECA. And it is maintaining a pretty beautiful variegation. And that is the only problem I have with this plant. With the one that I had, because I previously had one in my actual collection and I decided to sell it because it basically was just giving me all green leaves and I was just over it. This plant has a tendency to want to try to revert to all green on you, and then sometimes it will come back and give you variegation again. You might go a while with all green before it gives it back, or it may just never come back. It just tends to be not very stable variegation, first of all, and very sporadic in what it decides it wants to give you. But when it looks good, like it does here, you guys, it looks really good. It looks so beautiful. It will periodically give you almost solid white leaves or solid white leaves, and they will not last. They will last a little bit longer than some plants that put out all white leaves, but eventually they're going to be the first thing to die off. But if you can keep that variegation on them, they are absolutely stunning. Now, they do seem to, in my experience, get a little bit more leggy and lanky than some of the others that we're going to be looking at. I think with these, you can trim them back and try to keep them in a bushier appearance, but they they tend to be a bigger bush, if you will. Some of these ones that we're going to be looking at are going to stay a lot more compact than this. Now, all of these plants you can let climb as well. You can let all of them technically trail if you want to. It's just personal preference, you guys. And maybe some of them, you look at them and you're like, it would look beautiful if it climbs. Some of them you're like, well, I'd rather see you as a trailing, and some of them I'd rather see you as a bush. It's to each their own. This one, I think I want to keep in more of a bushy appearance, but I think I'm going to have to give it some supports to get it to stay upright because it is just so leggy and lanky. And this has been living in a west-facing window, so it's getting a decent amount of light. So it's not like it's just like etiolated and becoming leggy because of lack of light. But beautiful, beautiful shape to those leaves. Once again, more of that traditional arrowhead shape that we expect on Syngoniums, and in particular Syngonium podophyllums. It definitely is a stunning plant, and good news is they're relatively easy to find and relatively cheap nowadays, unlike in the past. So next up, I want to look at what I like to think of as like the sister plant to this plant. So let me set this one back down. And that is the beautiful Syngonium Ora. Now, a lot of people are not fans of yellow variegation, and I understand why. Yellow on leaves, we think leaves are dying, leaves look bad, whatever. I don't think this looks bad at all, you guys. And honestly, I am not normally a huge fan of like yellow on leaves with a lot of the unstable variegation plants. Obviously, I have like my Tenanthe luberciana is green with yellow variegation. I love it, but that's pattern gene variegation, right? Because it's a Tenanthe. This is unstable variegation. However, from what I have heard, it can be a little bit more stable sometimes than the albow, but both of them, they can revert. It can happen relatively quickly. I would highly recommend you acquire something, if you're gonna get an albow or something, if you're getting a baby one like this, make sure it is very well variegated. If you can get a bigger one that's well variegated, start there. Try not to buy one that's like low variegation because the odds of it reverting shortly after you've gotten it are even higher. But this is a very stunning plant. So same growth pattern, same shape to the leaves, same kind of look to that variegation as the albow that we just looked at, but just yellow instead of white. Stunning, stunning plant. If I ever was going to own an Ora plant, I think this is probably the first one I'd go with. I am kind of torn on the Ora monsteras, you guys. I don't know. Comment down below and let me know what you think. I am also slightly torn on the Ora alocasias. I don't know. I'm interested to know what you guys think about Ora plants in general. So comment down below and let me know. All right. So next up, see, do we want to do another one that I own? Actually, let's talk about the Three Kings next. I have brought this up in one video before, I believe. I don't even remember, probably over a year ago at this point, you guys. But this plant, I think I brought it up because maybe it was in one of my Planty Ranty videos because I was getting annoyed with name changes on plants. And I had pointed out that this plant, for the longest time on Steve Leaves' website, was referred to as Syngonium Jade because it is a beautiful green on green variegation plant. However, all of a sudden I started seeing it labeled as Three Kings everywhere, and I was confused. And then Steve's Leaves changed the name to it on their website to Three Kings and put in parentheses, AKA Jade. So I don't know why it became Three Kings. I've also heard it referred to as magic marble. Who knows? But I think it is a gorgeous plant. Now, one of the plants that we looked at earlier, so the Panda Galaxy, no, that's not a good one to compare this to. Actually, maybe it is a good one to compare this to. So whereas the Panda Galaxy was like kind of dark green with the lighter variegation color on it, this is kind of the reverse. It's more of a lighter leaf with the darker variegation, and the lightness is a little bit more on the margins, if that makes sense, but it is just a beautiful, beautiful plant. Once again, this is a podophyllum, and this is a very similar growth pattern to the Syngonium white butterfly, once again, so it is going to eventually get longer and start to want to trail, but you can keep it trimmed back to that bushy pattern. Now, another thing that I need to remind everybody of right now, because I feel like hardly anybody shows mature Syngoniums on videos because, well, lots of times it's because some of them just take a really long time to grow, and other times it's because it takes a really long time to get the leaves to do what they do when they actually mature, and that is to lobe out. So what do I mean by lobe out? So these plants are lobed leafed plants. So at the top of this leaf here, we have a lobe and a lobe. Eventually, as this leaf matures, hopefully I can find a decent picture, it's actually going to start to look like it's 3 different parts of a leaf, if you will, on that one petiole. A lot of people don't realize that that's what these leaves turn into because you never see mature specimens that look like this really in your local stores. A lot of people also don't particularly like how this looks compared to how the juvenile plant leaves look, and vice versa. Because honestly, I've had quite a few of you reach out to me asking me how to get them to lobe out more quickly. And the answer to that question is you really can't. It just takes time. But just be aware that that is what all of these leaves will eventually start to look like. Sometimes they will lobe out, just depending on the overall shape of the leaves, will lobe out a little bit differently looking, but they will lobe out. Okay, next up, let's look at another one of mine, and I think we'll look at my Syngonium Berry Illusion because this is a more bush-like Syngonium. Definitely is part of the illusion series of Syngoniums. Anything that has illusion in the name, it's still a podophyllum, you guys, but if it has illusion in the name, it's a type of Syngonium that's basically been, I guess, bred, if you will, to remain more compact and bush-like. So it's typically going to have smaller leaves than a lot of these other podophyllums that we're looking at, and it's typically going to stay smaller, more upright. Doesn't mean that it can't eventually start to vine over, but you can also always just easily trim that back. So this is the Berry Illusion, a gorgeous plant. Now, partially called Berry Illusion because down the middle of those leaves, hopefully you can see, there is a strip of pinkish coloring on the veining on that plant. Hold one second, you guys. I've got to put some of these plants we've already looked at back up because we have a cat situation. All right, you guys, my apologies for that. What was I saying? Definitely love the look of the bush-like appearance to this and the fact that it stays more upright. Now, I have recently, since transitioning this to LECA, I've actually lost quite a few of the oldest leaves down here just as it was adjusting and acclimating, but that has stopped over the course of the last few weeks. It did, though, look a little bit more full around here prior to that, but I still think it looks absolutely beautiful. There are quite a few different varieties in the Illusion series, by the way, you guys. So there are some that are more dark leafed with a little bit of like almost darkish reddish in them. There are some with a little bit of pink in them. There's just a ton. So if you do want a smaller, more compact one. All right, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag, you guys. Literally. Not literally, he wasn't in a bag, I promise. But I say the cat's out of the bag because we have a new family member, you guys. So meet Scooter, Badooter, you little wigglewort, you little wiggle fluffy boy. All right, there's a whole nother video coming up for you guys soon where I cannot talk today, you guys, where you will get an official introduction to this little guy and the story of how he came into George, Theo, and I's life. But the fact that he's going crazy and keeps scooting through here, I will also explain why he's scooting and not walking. And obviously the fact that he is scooting around is why he is named Scooter. You'll get the full story here in an upcoming video. So if you haven't subscribed or clicked on the notification bell, make sure you do so that you won't miss out on that video. But you're probably going to see him moving around throughout this video because he just woke up from a nap. But all right, Scooter, there was your official, he's so wiggly. There was your official YouTube introduction. There was your official YouTube introduction. You gotta look at the camera. Okay, he just wants to go play, I guess, because he just got done taking a nap. Okay, go this way. Go that way. All right, you guys, so I think we're actually gonna look at the last Syngonium that I own next just because the cats are all up in my business and I don't want anybody messing with it, which I don't know why. Like when you move a plant from its normal place, like when I move it to do a video here, it's like game on. Like they won't mess with it where it normally lives, but then it's like, well, why is it in a new place? I'm gonna go mess with that. So this next plant that we are going to look at, and I've got one cat right below me trying to grab it right now, is my Syngonium Glogo. We have seen this quite a few times lately, I feel like, and it has started to really bush out in the center there. So that is a better accurate representation of what this plant looks like in the center than on the edges here, because some of these older leaves are kind of starting to die off a bit more, so they're not kind of as rich of a green color, hopefully you can tell, as what's in the middle there. Now this is a more compact type of Syngonium as well. You're just gonna join the party today, huh? It's not the first video I filmed since I brought him home, you guys. Once again, you will get the full story, but this is the first one he's decided he is just gonna be all up in my business for. Yeah. So yes, definitely stays a bit more compact, but it can start to kind of vine out and trail as well, but it does not happen very quickly despite the fact that this is fast growing. So that is why it tends to maintain that more upright position. Now all that new growth in the middle is shorter than the old growth because all of that sprouted off from me trimming the longer bits that had grown a little bit too long for my liking. So this definitely is a fast growing syngonium, and it definitely is very easy to make bush out. Let's try to find another picture for you that looks more normal from like the side, because mine looks a little bit awkward right now because of the difference in height of that new growth versus the old growth. But as you can see, beautiful, beautiful plant. Definitely stays. This is gonna be a hard video to finish filming right now, you guys. He is just all over the place. Come here, Scooter. Come here, why don't you come lay here? You wanna lay in my lap? You don't need to go in the fireplace. Fireplaces are not for cats. Anyways, sorry if I'm a bit all over the place at this point in the video, you guys, but I think what I was trying to say was the Syngonium Glogo that we were just looking at, this tends to be a more stay compact, more smaller leaf Syngonium podophyllum, still a podophyllum, like similar to the Illusion series, maybe a little bit bigger leaves, it maybe gets a little bit bigger, but still kind of that same smaller growth pattern. However, it is not as small as our next plant, but let me go put this guy back in his home so he is not tempting the cats. Okay, so this next Syngonium on our list is our smallest, most compact Syngonium that we're going to be looking at today. There is a version of this that is known as the Syngonium Pixie. However, this is what is known as the Syngonium Mini Pixie. Pixie and Mini Pixie look very similar, except I'm sure you can guess, Pixie is a slight bit bigger than Mini Pixie. And I think I finally found a picture that kind of has something for scale reference for you to see just how tiny and compact this plant is. This plant definitely stays super small, super bushy, super compact, super dense looking, but has these beautiful leaves that, depending on the environment you have it in and the amount of light, can go from looking like a light green on dark green variegation where the center of the leaf is a lighter green with the outside edge being darker, or almost white looking in the middle. It's just one of those super cute plants, you guys. You know how some tiny plants, tiny things in general, like you're like, oh, it looks so cute when it's tiny compared to when it's big and mature. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but you see these and it's just the cutest thing ever, and they stay like this. So I think it's a really fun, different looking Syngonium. Once again, the leaves do not even really look that arrowhead shape. They have more of that round heart-like shape to them. I've had some people mention that this kind of almost can take on the look of like ivy, but without being the problem and pest magnet that ivy is, which is why I will never own ivy, especially not in my home. But definitely a cute little plant, and definitely if you like Syngonium but you feel like you don't really have a lot of room for a Syngonium that's going to get bigger, like my white butterfly, and even if you feel like you don't have a lot of room for those mini illusions that we were just talking about that also stay compact, this is as small as you can get. So this would be a great option for you. But up next is the Syngonium that is actually in the top 10 on my wish list, and that is the Syngonium Green Splash. I also have had some people tell me that they've seen this also referred to as a gray ghost. That was news to me. I'm not gonna say it was wrong, it's just not in my area what I've heard it like labeled as. But this plant is absolutely gorgeous. I love the fact that it actually kind of reminds me a little bit of like the confetti Syngoniums, also podophyllum once again, but it has this kind of frosted minty look to the leaf in terms of overall color, and then it has these dark speckles of green, hence green splash. So there's a lot of different confetti varieties. I say a lot. There's a few different confetti varieties of Syngoniums, and I feel like that's the same type of variegation, right? That's why they call it confetti, is because it looks like you just dropped a few like speckles of stuff onto the leaves. But I just really like this one in particular because it is green on green. I'm sorry, you guys, but the milk confetti and the regular confetti, which I think is sometimes called pink confetti, no, I can't. I think I'm gonna do a video for you guys on plants I don't get the hype about. Because I kind of feel like those two plants look like somebody like spewed Pepto-Bismol on a plant leaf. I'm just saying. Don't hate on me in the comments. I think I will do a video on plants like that coming up for you guys soon. But I don't dislike it on this plant with that green on green variegation. Now these leaves do have a little bit of a rounder shape to them, I feel like, than some of the other ones that we've looked at today, but still a beautiful plant. Probably about moderate growth rate on this one. It is going to get to that larger appearance, but can be kept in more of a bushy format even as it gets larger leaves and everything, just by constantly trimming it back and forcing it to vine out more. Okay, so let's look at a completely different type of Syngonium next, and this is the Syngonium Chiaia. In specific, it is the Syngonium Chiaia variegata. I am not a huge fan of the non-variegated version of this plant. Obviously a very different looking type of Syngonium here, not a podophyllum, clearly it is scientifically a Chiaia. It is a large leafed compared to what we've looked at Syngonium. It is much rounder shaped of a leaf. Almost like a lot of people wouldn't even think this is a Syngonium because we don't really see these, or at least where I live, you don't see these commonly in stores or anything like that. But when they are variegated like this, I love this big blocky variegation on these. Now this is unstable variegation, so it can revert. I honestly don't know many people who have owned this one. It sounds like maybe it's a little bit more stable though than the podophyllum like albow and Ora, but still could be a little bit potentially of a problem. But if you can keep it looking like this, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so up next we have the Syngonium podophyllum moito, which is also sometimes referred to as the Syngonium army. Now, I normally would have one of these to show you, but I've actually sold out of them in my rare plant inventory for my pop-up shop, so I'm going to flash one up on screen for you. This plant, I absolutely love just how speckly this plant is. This reminds me a little bit of the Philodendron Paricio Verde when it's actually staying variegated. It's got that kind of super speckled, freckled look to it. Now, one thing to know about this is the variegation levels can range drastically. Even in my inventory, I've had some that look closer to what I'm showing you here, and I've had some that look more like a faint green on green variegation, but it can get back to this if it doesn't have the strong variegation like this. Like if it's more of green on green and like close to the same color tone, green on green, it can get to this. So sometimes when they're not mature, opposite of mature, immature, they will not look as speckled. That doesn't mean that they can't be. You can't find ones that are immature that look that way, but just know that as they mature, they can get more contrast to the variegation like this. But definitely a beautiful plant, definitely a very popular plant. Sorry. Scooter got stuck on one of the cords that the camera's plugged into. Definitely a very popular plant lately. A lot of people have been wanting them in this area. I definitely need to get some more into inventory for that reason. Okay, next up is a plant that is still on my wish list. It's never been in the top 10, but it is the Syngonium. I have always pronounced this as Boutique. I don't know if y'all just heard that, but Scooter just kind of coughed, I guess, a little bit. I don't know, that was a weird thing he just did. But Boutique is how I always pronounce this, but now I've heard a lot of people saying it's Boutique or Batik. I don't really care because it's beautiful. That's all you need to know. So this does have kind of a similar look to a lot of just what are known as like green Syngonium podophyllums. This is a podophyllum again. And honestly, the new leaves that come in on my white butterfly look somewhat similar to this, but the difference is that the white vein-like patterning that you're seeing on these leaves, on the other plants that have leaves that come in this way that are Syngonium, typically that look goes away and the leaf turns either all green, or in the case of my white butterfly, starts to go to that really light, almost white coloring. But this maintains this pattern and it is stunning. And I was for a while seeing a lot more of these available in my area, not at like your major like chain stores or anything like that, but at some of the independently owned shops. But now I haven't been seeing as many lately, so I don't know what that is all about. But definitely a larger leafed Syngonium, not going to be like your... Ooh, bless you. That was one of the cats. We have a little bit of a kitty cold situation going on in this household right now. So if you hear sneezing in the background, that is what's going on. But definitely a larger leaf, closer to like the Syngonium white butterfly compared to those smaller leaf like Illusion series Syngoniums that we were looking at. Still that nice arrowhead shaped leaf and just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. All right, I think we only have a few more left, maybe only one. Let me check to make sure I didn't miss anybody for sure this time, unlike a few videos ago. Okay, yes. We only have one left, and it is another very unique Syngonium. I think I used this in possibly a doppelgangers video that I did for you guys a while back, because I feel like most people, if I showed you this plant and told you it was Syngonium, you would tell me that I was lying to you. And that is because this does not really look like anything I have shown you so far today. So this is a Syngonium Styromarkii, obviously not a podophyllum, and it is a beautiful plant. It is very philodendron looking to me, kind of similar to the Mayoi. Is that how you say it? Mayoi? I think that's how you say it. Also, kind of reminiscent of like a Thaumatophyllum bipennitifidum. And the nice thing about this, though, is that it tends to stay a little bit more upright, especially if you give it a pull, than my Thaumatophyllum bipennitifidum does. So, reminder, Thaumatophyllum bipennitifidum is a arborescent type of plant. It used to be classified as philodendron. It has been reclassified as Thaumatophyllum, but when it was philodendron, it was a group of what are known as arborescent philodendrons. So they grow in a more tree-like pattern, but they stay more of a compact. They don't get super tall as trees, but they do start to develop what looks like a trunk basically. But because of this, their giant leaves tend to flop out all over the place at the top. Not to say that the leaves on this plant don't. I think I have a picture from, Craig Miller Randall, because how many times can I mention him to you guys? Awesome guy, follow him on Instagram, amazing pictures, beautiful homes, beautiful plants. This is his, and you can see that it has lost some of its older leaves at the bottom. He does have it growing up a support, but look at it. It looks like a stunning, beautiful little mini tree. Who would not want this in their house? I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And looking at this, I'm still baffled. I'm like, how is this a Syngonium? I feel like this is one of those plants that could get reclassified at any moment because it just doesn't seem like it belongs with anything else that we have looked at today. I kind of feel that way about the Chia pins too, but more so this one. But it is amazing. And I believe everything I've read that he has talked about them. Now, granted, he's in Australia, and we know all the plants seem to love Australia more than Texas for sure. But everything he's posted, it sounds like it's not too difficult to care for. Once again, though, much larger than anything else we have looked at today. So I would definitely have to have a place for it. If I didn't already have my Thaumatophyllum that I love in my office, that would be an excellent place for it. But definitely, I mean, it's gorgeous. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. And man, I'm racking my brain right now about where I could put one. I don't know, you guys. That might have to wait for the future, or maybe if I decide to do some purging, which kind of leaning towards it might be time to do another purge of my collection, of some of the plants in my collection here sometime in the near future. But that is for another day in another video. But there you have it, you guys. Those are my top 15 Syngoniums. I would love to hear what your favorite Syngoniums are down below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to click that like and/or subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha! Say bye-bye, Scooter! I look forward to meeting you guys officially in a future upcoming video. Bye-bye!